Welcome back to StabtheDragon Productions for episode number 207. It is Saturday, March the 8th, 2025. It's 47 degrees and light rain in Fort Worth, Texas. We had hail this morning, tornadoes earlier in the week, and a dust storm. We are here to celebrate the Irish because St. Patrick's Day is a little over a week from now. And I'll be reviewing a couple of Irish whiskeys and discussing just a bit of Irish history. So tonight, we'll study and discuss Teeling Small Batch Irish whiskey. In my whiskey reviews, I start out with an introduction, then I give the basic facts about the whiskey, nose and tasting notes, my score, a letter grade that emphasizes drinkability, and then a recommendation, all in the first 5 minutes. Then I go into the details and history. I finish up with something special like a cocktail, and for a whiskey holiday edition like this, some history behind Ireland. Now, just the facts. This bottle costs $35.99 today at Goody Goody, and sounds close to what I paid for it at Specs 3 or 4 years ago. This is a 46% ABV or a 92 proof. It is non-chill filtered, is aged in bourbon casks, and then finished in rum casks. My label says SB51, small batch number 51, I guess. But the problem on the bottle is it says crafted and bottled by or produced and bottled by. Is this actually distilled by Teeling? I don't know. Nose and tasting. The website says floral and herbal with hints of vanilla, rum, raisin notes, and allspice. Creamy vanilla sweetness with dried fruit, raisins, and apricot character, and a slight tingling spice. It's got a long warming finish with lingering sweetness, spice, and oak notes. My palate says, well, I agree with the floral aspect of this, the tingling spice, definitely. The fruit to me was more pear-like. It was creamy, but really what stands out for me is the fact that there's a single malt thread through here that's very bold and crisp that I found remarkable. My score for this whiskey was an 85. Grade A, and that means drinkability. So even though my score is a little bit low, 85, and you'll have to stick around for the details to figure out my scoring. But this is a solid A for drinkability. This is my recommendation. I've just found my new favorite Irish whiskey. Absolutely. I've struggled with the type. Irish whiskeys and I just have not seen eye to eye. Some I liked and enjoyed, but others I really didn't care for. This Teeling small batch is very good. So if you are dipping your toes into the Irish whiskey, you may be, maybe you started drinking with American bourbons or Jack Daniels like I did. I think Teeling small batch is a great way to jump from American whiskey into the Irish. So I highly, highly recommend this. This is a new favorite. All right, let's go for the details. History. I heard about Teeling probably 4 or 5 years ago, and consequently, because of the word of mouth and the whiskey tube videos that I've watched, I purchased this bottle, and I think I got it right around St. Patrick's Day, because sometimes I do that. It's like, okay, it's St. Patrick's Day, I need an Irish whiskey. There you go. But so because of the buzz that I saw on the internet, I got it, and they were saying that it was very good for the price. And yet, it has sat on my shelf unopened for 3 or 4 years. Why? Because my experience with Irish whiskeys has pretty much been a failure. They failed to impress me, generally. I mean, some I thought were not good at all. Bushmills, I couldn't, no. Jameson, with the exception of Jameson Caskmate Stout Cask, that was very good. Otherwise, Jameson failed to impress me. Tullamore Dew was okay, pretty good. Actually, I'd do that again. Patties, I thought was pretty good. I'd do that again. Proper 12, I'd do again. So You know, but none of them really stood out. Sexton, uh, Fighting 69th, that impressed me. I've got a second bottle of that. That's pretty good. So, you know, my Irish whiskey thing has just not worked out so well. And I finally tried this Teeling small batch a couple of months ago at the private club that I attend, and I was surprised at how good it was. Now, the place I go is not real fancy and just normal folks like me. And this bottle of Teeling is their most expensive drink. So, you know, that says something. Now, so that's my history with the whiskey. But the Teeling family traces their whiskey making roots back to 1782, and Walter Teeling, who set up a still in Dublin. In 2012, Jack and Stephen Teeling got back into the whiskey business, and in 2015 started their distillery in Dublin, and it was the first new distillery in Dublin for like 125 years. Their website boldly claims that they are the world's most awarded Irish whiskey in the past 10 years. And that may be, you know, but it's stretching back, you know, you obviously got to look at Jameson. It's very difficult to research sales volumes of whiskey, but in general, the Teeling brand is pretty low down on that list behind such giants as, I mean, you've got the titan of Jameson. Jameson, world over, sells many times more casks of whiskey than most of the others put together, right? Tullamore Dew, I think, is second place. You got Bushmills, you've got Paddy's. However, some of the lists that I checked for best Irish whiskeys or top Irish whiskeys include Teeling. And usually it's the Teeling single grain that is listed, but I did see small batch listed a couple of times. And so the reviewers tend to be liking these Teelings, and it's just that they are so new. You know, they don't have the history behind them that Bushmills or Jameson or Paddy's. You know, so their sales figures are. I mean, they're really a very new distillery. But I'll tell you what, as impressive as this was to me, I would look for future growth by this brand. Absolutely. And I am now interested in buying other editions of this brand. Certainly. So, you know, they don't have a whole lot of history, but in the last 10 years, they've made some waves. So there you go. 3 points out of 5. They're young. They're on the way up, but for history, only 3 points. Bottle, label, and marketing. This is a round bottle, slightly tapered, which I like. It's not boring. You've got black glass. Now, some people really, it's either black or dark brown. I think it's black. I can kind of see through it. So it's smoky black, smoky brown. A lot of people really don't like dark glass bottles because, well, you can't see the whiskey. You know, I like colored glass, whether it's green, like Cutty Sark, or brown like Ballantine's, or black like this Teeling. I like colored glass. That's just me. I think the label is very nice. It's kind of classic. I don't know if you can tell it on the camera, but there's a shadow effect with the font that they use, and that makes it kind of look old-fashioned. Which, as a new brand, I see what they did there. Right? They're new, but they want to look old. Gotcha. And if you read the fine print here, which gold on a cream color is hard to read, but it says 2012 reborn 2012. So again, they're trying to make out that they're older than they are, and I get that. All whiskey companies kind of do that, you know, that kind of hee-haw stuff there. But nonetheless, I really do like the label. I like the glass bottle. It's got a real cork. Listen to this. There you go. That's a real cork, all right. So, you know, they really made an effort to do things the old-fashioned way in some ways, but on their website, as they describe how they do their whiskey, they are always talking about new and innovative and different and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I don't have any idea what their new stuff and innovative stuff is, but all right, so marketing, their website's pretty good. I like their website. It was understandable, gave good information. So the website was really pretty good. Uh, Being a history guy, I wish they gave a little bit more history to Dublin than they did. You know, they're the first new distillery in 125 years, but yeah, I think they could have given a little bit more history there. But otherwise, I think the bottle, label, and marketing, no commercials, simply word of mouth on whiskey tube shows. So 4 points out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Composition. This whiskey is 92 proof, non-chill filtered, aged in ex-bourbon casks, and finished in Central American rum casks. For an extra 12 months. So the law requires them to age for 3 years, and then the extra 12 months in rum cask makes it 4 years total aging, probably. You know, again, they didn't give a specific time, but if you do the math, you come up with 4 years. The grain and malt whiskeys are aged separately until married in the rum cask. And so this is a blend of grain and malt whiskeys. So really the bottle and the website are about as clear as can be for blended Irish whiskeys, except for the fact that the bottle nowhere says distilled by Teeling. It only says produced and bottled and crafted and bottled by. So is it distilled by Teeling? I don't know. I mean, I've had this bottle. If they started in 2015, and I bought this bottle about 2022, I think. So 3 years ago. And it was aged for 4 years before that. That's 2018. You would think this is distilled by Teeling, but they don't say that. So that's a hit on composition. Big hit. So only 10 out of 15 points for composition. Appearance. Well, let's pour some and look at it, since you can't see it in the bottle, which is the only bad thing about colored glass. So it's almost a trade-off, but I kind of like the colored glass. All right, in the Glencairn, you have a very light straw color. Very light. So that's on my scale, 2 out of 5. And aesthetically, I tend to prefer darker whiskeys because I'm in Texas, and you age a whiskey in Texas, and it's going to be very dark. And so those are my favorite kinds of whiskeys, so I like dark whiskeys. There you go. So appearance, 2 points. Nosing. Now my nose is inadequate for the task, but I do get something here. Pears, citrus, hay, floral notes, spicy notes. This is definitely a stronger nose than most bourbons. Most bourbons I simply cannot smell. Rye whiskeys, sometimes I can smell. Texas whiskeys I can usually smell. Scotches I can usually smell. This has a very pleasant nose, so 8 out of 10 points. It's not strong, but in order for me to smell it, that's, you know, my standard score is a 7, so this is an 8. Moving on to taste. It is true to the nose with the pears and floral notes, citrusy, spicy in a sweet way. This is delightful. Now, my problem with most Irish whiskeys is the notes are so faint and general, but this one stands out. It really pops in your mouth. It sparkles, okay? In some ways, it's almost like an American rye whiskey, and you get that sparkly, spicy thing going on there. As a blend between grain whiskey and single malts, I can actually taste that line of single malts through there. I'm used to drinking some Scotch single malts now, and there's a thread that is very bold, clear, and strong, almost harsh in single malts. I get that here. And yet it's blended perfectly with the grain whiskeys. And so this is very impressive. Absolutely. That is 24 out of 25 possible points. I mean, that's a favorite. That'll work. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. It definitely has a decent mouthfeel. It's not thin at all. It does show a little bit of youthfulness. Okay. The burn is blended nicely along with the spiciness of the whiskey. So it's the type of burn that I can really enjoy. There's no ethanol burn in here at all. It really doesn't go up into my sinuses, which is a minus. I mean, some whiskeys I like to go up. That's not a negative to have the burn go up in my sinuses unless it's the ethanol burn. The tingles linger in the mouth long into the finish. I mean, you've had a whiskey. I mean, it's still tingling, right? And so you get the flavor of the single malt that lingers. You get the pear note that lingers. I mean, this is a long finish, I think. I mean, this is really excellent. So I'm going to say 14 out of 15 for the mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Definitely. I mean, that burn is very appropriate for a 92 proof whiskey. Now, some people who don't like burns would say, oh, that's harsh. That's not smooth enough for me. Well, go to Jameson. I like to know that I've had a whiskey. This explodes in your mouth with spiciness, with flavor, with tingles, a burn, and it's in a very good way. Okay, it's 14 points for mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Neat or mixer? I prefer my whiskeys neat 90% of the time. All right, and so that's how I started in whiskey, and that's what I like. And so this is a wonderful, neat sipper. But the last couple of years or so, I've been getting into simple cocktails, going out to restaurants and distilleries and trying their cocktails. Last 2 or 3 years. So at the price point this is, I don't mind mixing this at all because, I don't want to mix a $60 bottle of whiskey with Coke or whatever, but $35, yeah, this is price point, great for mixing, great as a neat sipper. And so I'm going to try a cocktail here in just a little bit for you. But as a neat mixer, this gets 5 out of 5 points, certainly. All right. Price, value, and availability. Goody Goody has it for about 35. I think it should be 99. 35.99. Specs 35.78. Total Wine 35.99. The price is great for the value. To pay this much money, it's not a bottom shelfer. It's in the budget range, just over the budget range, maybe at 35. Great value, tremendous value for this price. It seems to be readily available. Goody Goody, Specs, and Total Wine here in Fort Worth, Cowtown, Texas. Okay, so you should be able to find Teeling small batch pretty much wherever you are. I mean, I don't know, but look for it, definitely. So price, value, and availability, 10 points out of 10. Bonus points. I'm going to give it 4 bonus points, and I'll tell you that it should have gotten 5, except the fact that it nowhere says distilled by. I don't get that. I do not understand that. And so, I don't know. So that's the -1. So that's only 4 bonus points. My score for this whiskey is an 85. My grade, which is drinkability. Do I enjoy drinking it? Solid A. Recommendation, I have just found my favorite Irish whiskey. I've struggled with the type and have liked and enjoyed some, but others I just didn't care for. This Teeling small batch is very good. So if you are dipping your toes into the Irish, maybe you started drinking with American bourbons or Jack Daniels. I think Teeling small batch is a great way to jump from American whiskey into Irish. If you find yourself stuck in the same old Jameson, Bushmills, Tullamore, and Paddy's circle of Irish whiskey, I would strongly recommend giving Teeling a try for something clearly more bold and different. Maybe you are exclusively into Irish and Scotch whiskey, but want to perhaps pursue American bourbons? Try Teeling first as a bridge between the types. Highly recommend. All right, at this point, I'm going to break for a cocktail, and then we'll get into some Irish history. Okay, we are back. I'm going to make this cocktail right here. There's 1 shot of Teeling. Canada Dry, sugar-free. Woof. At my age, you got to do the sugar-free stuff, which does affect the taste of the cocktail. Here's my Tom Collins glass with ice. What I like to do is pour in some of the soda first. And then I dump in the whiskey. And next, I top it off with some more of the soda. And you can stir that a little bit if you want to. I'll just sip it straight like this. And that works very well with the ginger ale. Okay, Teeling it is. In conclusion, let's do a history of the Irish a little bit. Since it may have been Irish monks who invented or discovered how to distill whiskey, it's fitting to discuss a little bit of the history of Christianity in a whiskey review. As a Christian myself and having an interest in church history and having some Irish heritage in my family, I am drawn to ancient and medieval history of Ireland, Scotland, and England. Christianity was introduced to England 3 times. The first would have been by Roman soldiers and merchants in the 2nd century AD. But in the early 5th century, Rome was in trouble and withdrew their army from Britannia, which then left a power gap into which the pagan Anglo-Saxons poured. While the church persevered, it was clearly endangered and set back. The Romans had never entered Ireland, so the Irish at this time were still uncivilized wild tribes of Celtic descent, very pagan. Patrick was born in the early 5th century, the waning days of Roman rule in Britannia, to a Roman in northern Britannia, and his father was a government official as well as a church deacon. His grandfather was a priest. But in his youth, Patrick was not a believer. At the tender age of 16, he was taken as a slave by Irish pirates and remained in Ireland for 6 years. While a slave, he turned to Christ, and his faith blossomed while he learned the Irish language and culture. At the prompting of a dream, he escaped from Ireland, fled, got back home where he diligently studied his faith, including going to France to study at Auxerre where Saint Germanus ordained him to the priesthood and Maximus of Turin consecrated him as a bishop. Patrick then returned to Ireland, probably to Wicklow, the port from whence he had fled his slavery. Patrick's ministry in Ireland was largely very successful, which is why he is the patron saint of Ireland today. Columba was born in Ireland about 521 AD and was raised in the faith. He studied in the monastic school of Movilla, then the school at Clonard Abbey, and in 563 he moved to Scotland, settling on the Isle of Iona, founding several churches in the Hebrides Islands. Patrick's ministry eventually produced a vibrant church in Ireland, from whence came Columba, and then Columba carried that faith to Scotland, which eventually spread south into Yorkshire and the land of the Angles, or England. Well, this was a very eye-opening review for me. I am glad for Teeling whiskey. This is now a new favorite. Next time will be another Irish whiskey as we continue celebrating our Irish heritage in St. Patrick's Day. This is Stab the Dragon, in hoc signo vinces, out here.